One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.
All right, welcome to another episode of One Guy's Seen It, the only podcast where one guy has seen the movie, the other guy has not seen the movie, and the first guy is going to try to convince the second guy to see the movie, and if he succeeds, they'll take a break, watch the movie, come back, nerd out about the movie, and decide how many beers you need to enjoy the movie, all while getting progressively more inebriated, because that is what they choose to do with their sentience. And without any further ado, rigmarole, hoopla, or ballyhoo, let's get into it. Sumner, give me the skinny. What's going on, buddy?
I'm giving you the skinny. I'm telling you what's up. What's happening?
Tell me the who's a what's-its, and give me the 411.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go right off the bat and say there's not a chance in hell of you guessing what this is, so I'm just going to give all the synopsis, and then I'll just tell you what it is.
Awesome. I'm ready.
I'll just tell you the title right out because, it's called One Cut of the Dead. It came out in 2017. It's a Japanese film, which we have to thank Andy for this one because we've been watching a bunch of Japanese movies because we moved to Japan. And we had just started with, just a bunch of stuff that we should see, like classic movies. And then there are a couple more recent ones that were highly rated that we just decided to throw on, and we absolutely love this one. So got to give her props because this was her child, and now I'm giving it to you.
Well, thanks, Andy. Big props. Okay, give me the cast. I'm sure I'll know all of them.
Starring a bunch of Japanese people that you don't know, but that's okay. I'll give you the IMDb synopsis. I don't want to give too much away, so I'm trying to be as cryptic as I can, but this is just what's on the IMDb page.
Okay.
The synopsis is, things go badly for a hack director and film crew shooting a low-budget zombie movie in an abandoned World War II Japanese facility when they are attacked by real zombies.
Oh my God, you know me so well. I mean, you couldn't have possibly come up with a better one guy's seen it.
Yeah.
I'm so hyped for this. Okay, continue.
Well, I'll give you a little trivia, and there's some cool stuff in here I didn't know until I looked it up. But so it only costs $25,000 to make, which is astounding to me. Because even today, so we watched Eraserhead, and that was made in 1977, and that cost about the same amount that this cost to make, and this only came out five or 6 years ago, and it ended up grossing over $25 million.
Holy crap.
So huge success, and I'm assuming Japan and or just touring the film festival circuit or something, but ended up being a huge success.
Yeah, there's some angel investor in there who is fucking rolling in it.
Yeah, and it's it highly deserves the praise. So most of...
What do you think that is? Do you think that's because you've got, I feel like I hear more and more than anything else that film budgets just keep getting, at least big AAA titles keep getting more and more ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that's specifically for movies that are heavy on special effects and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But if you consider that if you consider that the recording gear has got, you can get such better gear for so much cheaper that if you don't really need any crazy special effects and mostly everything's practical, you can really keep the budget low.
Yeah. I mean, I think with those studios too, it's all the stuff that they have is in-house. So they already have that stuff on retainer, like cameras and cranes and all that kind of stuff. But for indie productions, it gets a lot more complicated. A lot of people end up having to pay out of pocket to find investors that end up going through just to distribution, trying to get it out there and get the marketing out there. Marketing's a big thing, but a big portion of those Marvel budgets goes to mainly special effects, which, as much as people talk shit about VFX now, it's a pretty painstaking process, and when it's done well, it can be pretty seamless. But the a lot of the money just goes to star power. Like it really it gets just eaten up by actors and directors and really high profile people, and then the crew and writers end up getting a not really a fair cut compared to them, which I think is what the writer's strike is about now, which is a good thing because it's kind of balanced, not great.
Yeah. So what is the deal with the writer's strike? Like, what is the current state of things?
Well, the last I heard is that a lot of the bigger studios are in talks with coming to an agreement that all of them are happy with, but with the state of those companies being in competition, a lot of it is just they're trying to find a way that one of them will be on top. So they just keep going on and on and on. So it's been a couple months, probably even longer than that this has been going on. So it just sucks for creative people that are they just want the rights to streaming, which is a big thing. It used to be syndication rights for writers. They would get a check every time like a show would be on the air. But now it's streaming and they're not really getting a fair cut of that. And
yeah, they're just getting these like tiny residual checks, right? It's like finally people in the film industry are catching up to what musicians have been dealing with Spotify for the last 10 fucking years.
Yeah, exactly. And it just the whole dynamic of like in the last 10 years, it's changed so much that they've kind of built this model around keeping as much of the money as they can. And from the numbers I've seen, what they're asking is pretty reasonable. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it gets sorted out soon. But I kudos to a lot of actors and directors that are sticking by people, because it's a fucked up time in Hollywood.
Yeah, hang in there, folks. We need you. It's funny. I was reading. It was right when the strike started. I was skimming through an article about it, and they were talking about the super low residuals that everyone's getting from the streaming services, and then they mentioned this bar in LA called Residuals. Where have you heard of this place?
No. Mm-hmm.
So apparently it's famous in LA, and it's a place where like working actors and screenwriters or whatever, where anybody involved in the industry, where they all hang out and bitch about their low residuals. Like they hang out and drink, and I think the bar gives it, like, if you bring in a residual check, like if it's under a certain amount, you get a free drink or a free shot or something like that.
That's awesome.
And it's like, dude, I want to go there so bad and just be a fucking fly on the wall and like hear some of the conversations that go on.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool idea for a bar in a place like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like, there needs to be a bar in Nashville that is just called Royalties, and it's just like, musicians that are pissed about, every opportunity they ever lost or every deal they ever got screwed on, and everybody just hangs out in the bar and bitches about it. Like, I feel like that's a movie in and of itself.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I Royalties is a great idea too. If we ever make any money from this podcast, I'll go halvesies with you on that bar.
Yes, that is the plan. That is the fucking plan.
Yeah. It's funny too. I was just watching. Did you ever watch Hail Caesar? It came out probably like 2016.
No, but I remember you being really hyped about it.
So it's a Coen Brothers movie, and it's about the movie industry in the 50s. And there's a big plot point where they these Hollywood writers get together and they kidnap George Clooney's character, and they hold him for ransom in order to get paid a certain amount of money for because they're communist leaning. And then George Clooney wakes up in their house one day and he starts talking to him, and they start trying to convince him about communism and all the works that they've done to try and incorporate communist beliefs into film, which was a real thing at the time, which is a cool piece of history. But it was just funny to me because they talk about getting shafted by the movie studio. And they're like, they gotta look out for the little guy. And he's like, you're with us, right? And he's like, George Clooney just looks at him and he's like, well, studio takes pretty good care of me. I'm doing okay. But it's just funny. It hasn't changed in 70 years. It hasn't gotten any better.
Wow. God, what a world.
Yeah. Anyway, back to something lighter.
Yes, yeah, I'm super excited for this movie. Oh shit, we almost forgot. So what are you drinking today?
Oh, I'm drinking a mixed drink. It's a San Pellegrino blood orange mixed with vodka, and it's pretty good.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Tropical.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Diverse and exciting. Well, I'm kind of somewhat in the same vein. I'm rocking one of these Topo Chico seltzers, tangy lemon lime.
Ooh. What alcohol do you have in that?
I think it's like, and it pisses me off because Topo. It's like I love Topo Chico, right? Shamelessly.
I'm so fucking stupid. I heard you say Topo Chico, and I just thought it was like the seltzer water, not like the alcoholic.
No, hey, that's an easily confused. No, these are they're hard seltzers, and I go through phases with the seltzers, right? It's like I was all White Claw when they first came out, and then I just got burnt out on them. And of all the ones I've tried, you've got the fucking Bud Light seltzer, you got the Corona ones, you've got all these like local breweries that have got them everywhere.
Yeah.
Topo, so far, Topo's been my favorite. It's like just mild enough flavor. Like the hangovers aren't weird. They're perfect.
Yeah.
But they're slightly more expensive than all of the other ones because it's Topo.
Yeah.
And they're assholes. And just the cherry on top, it's slightly less booze than every other one. It's 4.7%. Every other fucking seltzer is 5%, but they're Topo, so they're 4.7 because fuck everyone. We're going to charge you more for less booze.
Yeah.
But that is the most I will complain about it. They are delicious, and they are my go-to these days because I go back and forth between when I'm drinking a beer or a malt beverage, I want some bang for my buck, right? So I've been an IPA guy for a while, and it's weird. I go back and forth between. Right now, it's basically Hazy Little Thing IPA from Sierra Nevada and Topo hard seltzers, and that's sort of that's where I'm at.
That was a glowing endorsement of Topo Chico.
It is an endorsement. It's also a fuck you. Because give me 5%. Just fucking do it. And also, I will say this too. One of the things I love so much about regular Topo is the sheer amount of fizz and carbonation, right?
Yeah.
Like it's profound. And the seltzers don't have that. The hard seltzers don't have that. If they had that same level of fizz you get in a regular Topo, they'd be perfect.
Yeah,
just be careful if you're ordering from. I don't know if you have DoorDash in Japan, but be careful because now there's this bullshit new like tequila version, and they're fucking terrible.
The ranch water.
And if someone's not paying attention, no, it's Topo Chico hard seltzer tequila version.
Okay.
And it's like all the same flavors, but it's tequila. Well, I don't know if it's the same flavors, but the branding looks exactly the same. And if some unassuming DoorDash driver is not paying total attention, they will pick up the tequilas. So just prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. I'm gypped over here. We don't have Topo Chico, and we don't have any like seltzer or hard seltzers here.
But you told me you have fucking what do you call it?
Oh, we have
sake seltzers.
We have sparkling sake seltzers, which are pretty fucking great. I gotta be honest.
It's to each one half dozen the other, whatever the fuck that expression is. Like I would kill for one of those. That sounds awesome.
There's this one that's plum flavor, which sounds kind of weird, but it's better than any hard seltzer I've had in the States. I'm playing my hipster card really hard right now, but
play it away, man. What else? We're doing a completely self-indulgent podcast here. Why not play every hipster card you possibly can?
Yeah, but no Topos. I miss those a lot. But well, I got San Pellegrino blood orange beverage.
Hey, Pellegrino's the fucking shit too.
Yeah.
I think we've dithered and blithered enough.
Oh wait.
Let's this is one guy's seen. Oh, you got more stuff?
Just two more things and then we'll get started.
Hell yeah.
So it costs $25,000 to make, but a large reason for that is because most of the cast paid money to be in the movie, and at least initially. But this it says here it was a final product of an acting and directing workshop from some seminar in Japan. So it was just a bunch of cool actor and director people got together and wanted to do it. But there is, I think, the thing the movie is most famous for, and I don't think it's given too much away by saying this, but it has a genuine, unbroken 37-minute take with no editing tricks, and it's
37 minutes.
37 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty great, and it completely flew under the radar, and it did really well, but I feel like most people in the U.S. or just haven't heard of it or been exposed to it anyway. So I'm glad I got some kind of platform I can share this with people if anybody's listening.
I'm so fucking hyped.
Yeah, and so spoilers from here on out, but if you haven't seen it, just watch it, please, before you hear any more.
Fuck yeah. Just a heads up, you were listening to One Guy's Seen It. The next part of this episode will be packed with spoilers. So when you hear that trumpet hook, it's on, Jack. It is on. All right, we are back with One Guy's Seen It. Sumner, I'm not going to lie, I was questioning everything that I thought I knew about you in the first 30 minutes of this movie. But to be fair, my faith in you held true, and I knew that nothing could possibly be as it seemed.
Yeah, it's I think it's fair to say there's really nothing like this movie that I've ever seen.
No, it was adorable, and it was ambitious, and it was creative, and it just made me feel so warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it's one thing you don't expect, and one thing I was pleasantly surprised by the end of it. It was so warm and fuzzy and filled you full of good feelings.
Yeah, it sucks because I'm a zombie movie fanatic, and I worry for this movie because for obvious reasons, it was 37 minutes, right? The first part of the movie, and I wonder how many people who maybe stumbled upon this didn't make it through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me sad. But for all of those who did, what a treat.
Yeah, it's just there are tons of those reviews on IMDb too. People that give it 1 star. It's like, I can't believe anybody made it further than 15 minutes. And to be fair, watching it, I was like, I knew there was something up. I had no idea what it was. But even by the end of it, it's a long time. And by the end of those 37 minutes, you're like, I don't know how this movie can redeem itself. That was so bad. And then somehow, miraculously, by the end of it, you're like so in love with all the characters and what they're doing and how hard they're working to achieve what they're doing. It's like you can't help but have a big smile on your face.
Right. And it sucks too, because I basically cheated watching this movie. Well, okay.
No.
Let me put it. No. What I mean is, I cheated because you suggested it as a part of One Guy's Seen It, and I know you, and I know that you wouldn't have suggested an absolutely terrible C movie zombie flick. So I had a reason to stick around where I fear that the average person stumbling across it wouldn't. So I feel like I cheated, and it sucks because it was great. It was, everything that you said. So you said you've gone down the IMDb review rabbit hole. Tell me about this movie, what you know about it, and I know you already gave me some trivia, but what's the what's going on?
Well, I mean, the information out there is pretty obscure, but while we were breaking, I finished before you did, And I found a cool making of One Cut of the Dead on YouTube, which is really cool. Because the director basically breaks down on a big whiteboard with everybody and like goes through rehearsals, and then the rehearsals on top of rehearsals, and then the shooting. And there's all this great stuff of them just trying to figure out what it is, and all the actors trying really hard to like make it like good, like for the first part of it. And he's like telling them, it's like, no, you can't make it good. You have to act like you've been doing this for hours and hours and hours, and you're just totally exhausted. Like it's borderline experimental what he's trying to do, because he's like testing the audience's patience so long, and I'm not sure I've ever seen somebody attempt to do that.
Right,
because
and only an indie movie could pull that off.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, because I was like, this is a great, because I feel like a lot of indie directors go in to like the indie world with the mindset that like this is a stepping stone to get me somewhere else, give me bigger and better jobs, and to like show what I'm capable of, kind of thing, which a movie does. But it's like the indie format I don't think is taken advantage of in this way that often, because you can really play around with the form of the medium in a way that like if you had millions and millions of dollars and you had to make that back, like you're not given the freedom to try something as insane as what's tried. And well, like indie films, like directors use it as kind of like a jumping off point for bigger and better things. Like they go in with the mindset that like, I'm going to make this small budget movie just so I can get bigger and better projects on the road. And like there's passion to what they're doing. But I think very few filmmakers try to play with the format in a way that's, like that's unique and that's not focused on marketing or even like audience expectations to a degree. Like it's really has a unique vision and sticks to it. And the first half of the movie is just setups with no payoff. And if you're going in with the mindset, like, I don't know what the fuck this is, I don't know what you're trying to show me, and you give up, you're not given the reward of that, all that time invested into creating this world and creating these things and creating these stakes that you don't even know you're involved in. And then when you actually see the finished product and like you can kind of step back and view it as a whole picture, you get this, kind of, if you're a creative person, especially like this life affirming, like people just trying their best to create something and, trying as hard as they can.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about the movie too. It's like, it doesn't discount or make fun of people that make stuff that's terrible. Because even at the end of the day, they're people and they have struggles and, they're all kind of going through their own thing. But it's, I'm trying to think of a way to say it. God, I had it and I lost it. I wrote it down somewhere. But
No, but it's like you said, right? It's like A-list directors can't afford to take those risks, and it's like because there's too many people to answer to, and which reminds me, speaking of people to answer to, I think one of my favorite characters in the whole movie was the network lady.
Oh yeah.
She was just like a cartoon. Like she didn't even look like a real person, but she was a great little comic relief. But it's like it goes back to sort of what we were even talking about before we started this podcast, which is we were talking about I'd just seen the movie The Menu on HBO Max, or I guess it's just Max now. But how sort of the main theme of the movie was how caught up in expectations and the status quo and like what elitists of any medium or art form consider good. People get so caught up in that it creates this sort of class system within each art form, right? Where you feel like you have to do all of these things and you lose the reason that you wanted to make movies in the first place. And then you think about that across. I'm always gonna equate like art with making music because that's the art form that I'm most involved with. And it's like you think about it too, like some of my favorite records are records that I knew were early in a band's career or an artist's career where they couldn't afford the newest version of Pro Tools. They couldn't afford a good drum room. They couldn't afford good mics. So they made what they could with what they had. And when you're limited by that, it's only the story. Like the only way you can make a good piece of art is the story. And the presentation of it, and all the little things don't matter as much, because at its core, that's what the art form is. And I think that's sort of what maybe the director of this movie was trying to get across in a very layered meta way, right? Like, my favorite thing about the whole movie was the end credits where they show the guy filming the making of the movie. Like,
yeah,
I loved that.
Yeah, and it's layers upon layers of, like, so you have the first one, and then you have the behind the scenes, which is like the making of, like, the important, like, part of it, and then you have the actual filming of the first thing.
Yes,
like, it's layers of inception of the process of making a movie.
Yeah, I mean, can we just talk about the redemption arc for the drunk guy and the shitting guy? Because both of them ended up at the bottom of the Crane pyramid. So they went from being the biggest kinks in the chain to the most valuable members. And it's funny too, because I remember in the first 30 minutes thinking that the ending Crane shot was really awful, and it was awesome to see why. Like, it was awesome to see so many of my, because even though, like I said, I was cheating and I could easily muscle through the first 30 minutes because I just knew, because you were recommending it, that something was going to happen. But it also kind of made me hyper focused on things that I may have checked out on before. Like the shitting guy's performance really caught me off guard in the first 30 minutes. I was like, what the fuck? That's so bizarre. And some of the dead, slower moments, like definitely the end scene where she's got the axe that she magically finds, and her lover guy keeps freezing every time he gets up to her. And I remember thinking at the beginning, I was like, what could possibly be the reason for this choice? Like, whereas the average viewer may have been like, oh my God, this is so terrible, I was thinking why? Like, why is this happening right now? And part of me thinks that you recommending this movie in some weird roundabout way prevented it from having the effect it could have had if I had stumbled across it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, like discovering it, and that was one of the things I talked about with Andy too. I was like, I don't know, I want to keep everything as under wraps as possible, but I have to, like, sell it to you into a way. So I mean, like, I gave you, like, the basic plot, which is, you know, not really the plot of the movie, and then you know, little details about it, but, you know, there's a long 37-minute take.
Yeah, which hooked
and I was like,
me.
just. Yeah, like little things to sell it, but yeah, beyond that, I was like, shit, I can't say anything else about the movie because it gives
you're saying
the best part away.
Andy stumbled across this?
Yeah, well, it was like at like the top, like, you know, like best Japanese movies to watch, because we're trying to watch as much Japanese entertainment as we can, and that was one of the top ones on there. And yeah, that was the thing with that too. We just just stumbled across it, and we knew basically about as much as I told you, which is what I try to keep it as. So yeah, I was struggling a lot the first time we were watching it, because I knew something was going to happen, like it must, in order for people to recommend it so much. But yeah, I had no clue what it was or how it would possibly redeem itself.
Yeah. You know, it's funny too. I always talk about how important soundtracks are to me, and I actually really dug the kind of cheesy, generic Jet inspired rock soundtrack, like, theme that was going on the whole time. And it's funny, for whatever reason, it's like, you know, certain melodies or guitar riffs can bring a more popular song or a song that I really know sort of into my head. And it's so funny because toward the end of the movie, whatever the, like, main guitar lick that was happening through the back half of the movie when they're making it, and it's kind of carefree, happier vibes. It, for whatever reason, put the Bully soundtrack in my head, and it's funny. Like it just made me think of you because I know how much you love that game. I was just thinking how much better some of those scenes would have been just with the Bully soundtrack going on, like in the back half of the movie. But anyway, it's random, but it's just funny how just shit can move other things into your head. But it's funny, man. There were a few moments that really stuck out to me that really made me laugh out loud. The biggest, I think, I loved the drunk guy, but there's a part of the movie where, because there's like a director of photography assistant or whatever who's like carrying the drunk guy around and just trying to get him out of the way for a while, and then it sort of cuts and he ends up like in sort of the production booth wherever they're set up, like he's just lying in the pile of fake dead bodies, and there's no explanation for how he got there, but it's just like, because I was just hyper focused on every little detail just because of all the meta layers nature of it, and him like when the director's daughter decides to sort of take over and she's like, who's available right now, and they just pull him out of the pile of dead bodies, like just it was so good.
Yeah, just complete run and gun filmmaking. And there's so much about it that I love. And there's a bunch of like funny little cliches that they throw in, like throughout, like, like every cliche you can think of in a zombie movie shows up in there.
Right.
Like the person tries to hide their bite, and then there's like the badass zombie killer person, like the lead is really innocent and like out of the way. So it's like, it's like the standard plot, but I love the way when it like cuts back to like a month earlier and they're explaining the idea to him and they're like, we're doing one-shot zombie movie. And he thinks it's a joke. He's like, that's the stupidest fucking idea I've ever heard, because it's like pretty much impossible what they're explaining to him. And he's like, all right. But he's like a contract laborer guy. So he's like, well, if you're paying me, I'll do it. This crazy idea you have for your new sci-fi channel. And that's the thing that's important about it too. It's not just a bad movie. It's a bad movie with the premise of being one shot, like a bad sci-fi channel movie. It's not just like it's like some like bad ripped off thing, like The Room or something like that.
Yeah, it's a bad idea for a bad sci-fi movie on like a sci-fi channel.
Yeah,
it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah, but I think it does a great job of showing like how much passion and creativity goes into making something that's even terrible. Like it gives you perspective on how many people are out there just creating things and people just can disregard because, it's not great, it's not their style or anything like that, but how many people are out there just trying to live their dreams and their lives, and it takes so much work.
Right.
And it's kind of a thankless job, but the satisfaction you get out of doing a good job is kind of the basis of the
and it begs
movie.
it begs the question too, like how difficult is it to make something truly terrible? Like it really took some effort to make it look that terrible, but then also look how much effort it took on the back end to make something that looks truly terrible. So like you said, it makes you appreciate something that looks really good.
Yeah, and they oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. So I wanted to ask you something. So the sort of the back half of the movie where it's showing the process of them filming the first half of the movie, how do you know if, I guess my question is, and you might not know, but sort of how separated was it? Like were they actually filming that first take when they're filming everyone filming the first take?
That's what I was thinking too. So I was watching the behind the scenes thing. So they even at the end credits you see the guy doing the one shot,
right?
And then the guy handing him the water and stuff. So kind of what I pieced together is like they did the one shot, and then they basically they must have just rehearsed it so well that they were able to recreate those moments.
That's what I figured.
Almost exactly. And like down to like the cadence in their voices and the way that they're positioned for the shots and stuff. And it's and I think it's funny too, because I think a lot of people will write off that long take at the beginning is like, oh, that, it's terrible. It's so easy to do. But every little beat of that, every little weird thing that happens is totally intentional and thought out till like the second that it happens at the end of the movie.
Which is
like
so
you see,
bizarre because it's designed to not look that way.
Yeah, it's kind of a mind fuck when you think about it. It's like, and I think about that too because there's so many movies like Birdman. The movie that came out.
Yeah, I love Birdman.
And it's built on those really long takes of these really intricate shots, but it's showing off how it's doing it very clearly, and it's like playing with the form and the camera and the angles and the lenses and stuff, and you're like, wow, this is really cool the way that they're doing this. But when you take that and you strip all that away and just leave the essence of what is built around those shots and you just have that, I think it goes over most people's heads and you don't realize how much work it actually took to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of film people enjoy because it made the rounds at film festival circuits and became a huge hit afterwards through word of mouth, and I think people just really appreciated that about it, and people that either don't care about that stuff or not that interested in the making of probably wouldn't have a lot of appreciation for what's going on. But like if you're more of a creative person, I think there's a lot to unpack and enjoy.
Yeah, so that's interesting you say that. It makes sense that it would do well on the festival circuit because for the same reason that I got through that opening 40 minutes, like people at a film festival would be sitting there, and or at least a respectable one, and would be sitting there and be like, there's no way this is what this movie is. Like, they would have that sort of inherent like reason to hang on because you're there with a bunch of film buffs and film snobs, and there's no way this thing is actually this bad. Like, there's no way it would get through the cracks. So that makes sense that it would do well there because if anybody's going to give it a chance to do what it's trying to do, it would be on the film festival circuit.
Yeah, and I think the only way this movie could have grown is through word of mouth, and people are like, just trust me. I wanted to text you midway through, and I was like, I just wanted to send, just trust me. But I didn't want to give anything away either.
No,
so
and I'm glad you didn't.
Off.
I'm glad you didn't. I needed that sort of process of processing. The process of processing.
It's so much more rewarding when you see that that cut at the end after that. Everything is so drawn out, that long crane shot that lasts for probably like 2 or 3 minutes. Like, it's really long, and the fake credits roll, and then it fades to white, and then it's like a month earlier, and you're like, okay, there's something.
Yeah, there's some
happening.
substance here. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have to commend a director that would have the balls to just be like, because there had to be so many people that were like even like remotely interested that were like, he's like, you can't open the movie with that. You gotta like sprinkle it in. I'm like, and he had to have been like, this is like the payoff to the movie. If like we don't open with this, there is no movie. There is no payoff.
Yeah, that's the vision.
The sequence. Yeah, and that's the whole idea of the movie, and that takes a lot of guts to be like, I'm gonna do it this way, and if people walk out, they walk out.
Yeah, it's like, what's the scale, right? That uncompromised vision you can pull off at an indie scale. And you know what? And I'm not going to talk about Oppenheimer in every single episode, but I think This makes four, but you can be so successful, right? Like, let's say, I don't know anything about Christopher Nolan's career, but, let's say he was doing his Christopher Nolan thing as an indie filmmaker. And which is interesting that you say that. I actually thought about him when I was thinking about the form. Anyway, sorry, say what you're saying. I'll say it afterwards. No, that's cool. I mean, I'm not really saying anything of substance, but my thought is like, let's say a guy like that who has his uncompromising vision, makes a few badass indie films, becomes an A-list director, and then you get so big that there's no one to tell you no. And it's tough, right? It's like oh, man, it's like you can be a genius, and even maybe early on in your career, no one telling you no, or being in a situation as an indie creator where where it doesn't matter if anyone tells you no, can be the best thing for your art, but it can also be the worst thing for your art. Like, not to bring it back to me, but like, I can't fucking finish a song by myself. Like, I need someone whose opinion that I respect, who is talented in the field, to put a final mix on a song and master it and say, hey, this is done. Like, I need that. I need someone to say, no, this is a wrong choice, because I can't deal with what I've created if I don't have that. And maybe some people aren't wired that way. And I know a lot of people aren't. But like you said, it's the balls to just say, you know what, this was my uncompromised vision. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. This is what it is. Because it's a huge risk with a potentially great payoff or potential epic failure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is a great movie for, the times in Hollywood now, because like we were talking about earlier with the writer's strike, this movie really drives home the message that, you can make something and, have an uncompromising vision, but the movie makes a point that it's not just one person or, a couple of people or, some really egotistical actor that's like trying to make it his own, like throughout the whole thing. It's a team of people that are working together as hard as they possibly can to make something happen.
Yeah, that clearly shared the vision, and that's cool.
Yeah, and it's just a lovely little film.
That, it's funny. That's exactly what I thought walking away from it. Wow, that was a lovely little film. Like, that's...
Yeah,
and I didn't feel that way walking away from Eraserhead, so...
It's a lovely little film with really fucked up big ideas.
Yeah. Fuck your big ideas, David Lynch.
Oh, but back to the Christopher Nolan thing I was saying earlier. So it was like, as I was saying earlier, this movie really plays with the idea of like a format, because it's really not like a traditional, like what you would consider like a 3-act structure. Like, it's really just 2 halves. Like, it's the movie that they've made and then the making of that movie. And it's like they have their own little arcs. And it's split up in such a way that like all these weird things that you pick up on when you're watching, I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, there's a scene of them just standing there, and then they stare off in the distance for what seems like forever when you're watching it, but it's probably like 30 seconds. And then you come back to it later. It's all these little connections. It's like, oh, that's what that was. Like, oh, that's what that was. Like, it has a great like little, like it peppers in all the like weird things that you thought were unintentionally bad or unintentionally bad, but were like just them trying to roll with the punches and trying to come up with something on the spot. And it's so fun. And but the Christopher Nolan thing, I was like, the only other filmmaker I can think of that worked in an indie format and really played with it was when he did Memento with Guy Pearce, because the whole subject of the movie is a guy with not short-term memory loss, but he's like he can only remember things in like an hour like length. So the movie plays completely in reverse. So you start at the end of the movie, and then you see everything happen in like about an hour, and then it cuts, and then it goes to a segment before, plays about an hour, and then it cuts, and it keeps cutting back and back and back until you get to like the beginning of the movie. And it, like, by any standards of, screenplay structure or like any book you would read, that shouldn't work at all, but it does somehow, and it's a really good movie. And like, that's the kind of creativity and like joy of filmmaking that indie movies can do. And it's like, that's what the whole industry should be based off. It shouldn't be, big budget cookie cutter things. It's like, how can we either make this really cool, really interesting, fun, or just play around and just try things?
How can we push the medium forward?
Yeah, and I won't say this is like, like great, but it uses the indie format in such a way that most people don't even try to attempt. And on such a low budget, it's really impressive what they were able to do.
You're gonna make me cry, man. You're gonna make me cry talking about art.
Yeah, I just love this movie, and you can tell there's so much passion and love put into it, and it's a nice fuzzy warm blanket of a movie.
Yeah, I was really pissed there for a minute at you. Like it was a quick turn of events in my mind when I started getting up. Well, that's the thing too. It's like going back to what you were just talking about, right? Is the payoff, right? The second half of the movie, like seeing these things that stood out to you at the beginning, seeing the why of each one of those things. It's this satisfying dopamine hit that keeps you watching, right? And I was thinking about it too, and I was like, man, like there were so many sections of the first 40 minutes of that movie where I started to zone out, and I had to catch myself and keep myself from zoning out, only because I knew that this was One Guy's Seen It. If I was watching it on my own, I probably just would have zoned out. And then you get to the back half of the movie and you don't remember those little details, and they don't matter as much. They're not as significant. And that's not it really required you to fucking, it required, like you said, it required me to be all in from the jump. If you hadn't told me, hey, like, no matter what happens, just be all in, stay on it. I can't say for certain how I would have experienced the movie. So,
yeah, and that's a funny thing too. I think I wrote down here somewhere. I was like, this is something that has probably never been attempted before and will definitely never be attempted again. I can't imagine a scenario where something like a 40-minute opening of something that most people would have no patience for, especially now. It's shocking that this movie was made in 2017, like the height of where TikTok became a thing. People's attention spans are like based in 10-second increments, and it just became this like big phenomenon somehow for the scale of what it was made for. Like it made 1,000% like profit based on its budget. Like that's it's now it's like the rarest thing you can think of for an indie movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that, I guess that's just the evolution of media consumption. Like, I think there's always going to be, it's the same with music, it's the same with fashion, it's the same with film. There's a cyclical nature of like what people appreciate, right? And there's this cycle of like a certain format becoming super popular for valid reasons, and then a previous iteration of that format gaining a lot of praise or appreciation because everyone's so tired of the current format that only came as a result of that previous format now being appreciated, becoming so commonplace. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't help but think about like Chris Stapleton getting all of this like pizzazz and appreciation and all these awards and shit. I guess it was like back in like 2017 or 2018 when he had with Tennessee Whiskey, and he was winning Grammys, and he'd been around as a songwriter for so long, making traditional country music with no one appreciating it because the bro country shit was so in. And then once everybody's so tired of the fucking bro country shit, there's one lantern in the dark of Chris Stapleton, when really there's been thousands of guys like him doing this for so long, and he just gets selected by the current meta to be appreciated for that current meta to say, oh, hey, we still have taste, we still know our roots, we still know where this came from. And it's like sometimes when a movie like this suddenly goes viral or gets popular and everyone's like, oh, I loved it, and it's like you're talking about in this era of 10-second attention spans and no one being open to new ideas, it makes me feel bad for how many other indie movies like this have pushed edges and pushed boundaries like that maybe didn't get the appreciation because they didn't win the Zeitgeist lottery or whatever. It's a twisted, fucked up train of thought I'm on here, but I'm glad that this movie cut through the noise.
Yeah, it's a really special kind of thing, and I think it's one of those things like you come across rarely, where it's a life-affirming moment where somebody is just like, I'm just gonna try something, and it's just, even if it was just the attempt, like I would appreciate the attempt, but it was so much more than that, and built on its characters, and I think that's one of the things that makes the movie work. I think if the characters weren't as likable and lovable as they are, because we'll talk about them real quick, because you got the director who's given this really weird assignment that he kind of doesn't want to do, but he's like, I'll do it. It's an interesting idea, at least. And so he's got a daughter, and she's growing up, and she's about to go off to college, and he's got a wife who's former actress, which is one of my favorite gags of the movie, is like she's so method that she can't act anymore.
Yeah, she was awesome.
And he won't let her do it. And then he's got this whole crew of guys, and the drunk guy that you were talking about was like his kind of like his ride or die actor guy. He's just done films with him, and they're just good friends, and he's just like he's an alcoholic, but he's just like he just likes him, so he'll just hire him to be in stuff, even though he's kind of unreliable. And then and then you just got these kind of like little crew of misfits that are just trying to make this thing work, and it's so fun to watch it just kind of fall apart before their eyes, just because they're just so stressed out just trying to get through it. And it's a very particular kind of filmmaking. It's like almost like a play. Like you just kind of have to roll with the punches no matter what.
No, but I'm with you. Intricate, detailed, lovable, relatable characters will always make a movie stand apart.
And I do love the bits of the drunk. He's like passed out, and then he's like having to like hold his arms and his head up like behind the scenes. And then he keeps running in like randomly throughout the movie, just yelling "Action!" And he's like, "This is fucking great."
He was awesome. And I will say, going back to her, I think the wife was probably my favorite character. Her arc was awesome, and she just loses it.
Her poem.
Yeah, the poem. I'm gonna start doing that, man. That's how I'm gonna protect myself.
Yeah, she has to come up with the little thing on the spot, and they set it up really nicely where she's just watching it at home and like practicing self-defense, and then she comes up with this improv just to save time. Yeah,
you know what's funny? That part of the movie in the first half really hooked me. I was like, man, this is a little. I don't want to say edgy, but it was just quirky and weird enough that it made me pay attention, that scene. And it's so funny to see it in the back half, like seeing this just like rational logic behind it instead of some genius, director and writer trying to make a zombie flick, deeper or whatever. Like,
yeah,
I liked that playfulness with my mind.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about this before in other podcasts, but I'm burnt out on those psychological A24 horror movies that I like some. Like I like The Lighthouse and a couple other ones, but then there are some that are like did you ever hear The Lamb?
The Lamb,
I guess. Yeah,
no.
It was a Swedish quasi horror movie about a couple that give birth to a baby with a lamb head.
Jesus.
And it's like shit like that. It's like, it's one thing to where it's like, it's like trying to be like this weird horror movie, but it's really trying to be this deep psychological allegory for parent. It's like, like just show me a movie, like make me entertained, like, you know what I mean? And
yes.
That's one of the things I appreciate about the movie is like it's just about the basics of, I guess a structure. I think the most basic thing you can do in a screenplay is like you have a setup where you like, set up all the little elements that you want to have, and you have them floating in the air, and then you pay it off later on, and everybody gets like, oh, that's what they were going for. That was, like the relief. And this movie is just filled, like the whole first half is just like, you're just in anticipation of something happening, and it just sets up everything that's going to happen in the back half of the movie. And it's such a small, subtle thing, but it pays off in spades, and it makes like the first half worth it if you're willing to go through it.
Yeah.
And some people even seeing that don't get it, and that's fine. But
right.
I just it tickled me. It
No,
hit me right in the.
I loved
sweet
it.
spot.
Thank you for sharing it with me. It was awesome. And we're getting close to wrapping up here, so I think it's time to give it our rating. So on a scale of 1 to 5 beers, Sumner, how many beers did you need to enjoy this movie?
At least 3, I think. And that's not to say in a bad way, but to get through that first half, I think you need at least a couple, because if you don't know what you're in for, you need a couple to get through that. But on the second viewing, it makes it so much more worth it, I feel like.
So second viewing, you're closer to like 2 beers?
I'm closer to 2, yeah, for sure.
So you'd say 2.5?
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah,
but it's I highly recommend it.
So I was gonna give it a 2.5 as well. So that keeps us right even in there, 2.5. Only because this is what's interesting about our rating system and why I love it is it's 1 to 5 beers. It's easy to think, okay, well 5's the worst, 1 is or 0's the best. But no, in a situation, it's movie dependent, right? Like you need a couple beers to get through the slog and then get to the payoff. It's unique in that way. So even though we're giving it 2.5 beers on a more let's call it on a less dynamic scale, on a scale that is more monotonous and less interesting, maybe closer to 1.5 or 2 beers, but from a practicality meets, surrealist point of view, let's say 2.5. I think that's a solid rating.
Yeah, I think in like a traditional rating system out of 5, I would give it like 4.5, just because I think it's like it gives like indie films like a kind of hope for the future. It's
yes, this movie is about hope.
Yeah, very much. I think it's a big theme, and all the all the other stuff, getting old, your children leaving you, but
yeah,
I
we
did
don't need to
love
talk
that.
about all that shit, man. I'm about to turn 30. I can't handle that right now.
Oh, boo-hoo. Boo-hoo.
Oh, shut up. You told me you were feeling old. What are you, going to be 23 or some shit?
That's going to be 27.
27. Yeah, shut the fuck up. You still have...
It'll be 27 in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a number, man. It's just a number.
I did love the symmetry of the movie. There was a shot where it's one of my favorite cuts in the movie where he's talking to the drunk guy and he's basically confiding in him this really sad story about his daughter. He's like, his alcoholism is like getting in the way of him and his daughter like having a relationship.
Yeah.
Like he got so drunk he just like didn't show up to like meet her somewhere, and he like starts crying, like it's really sad. And then the director's like, no, it's okay. He's trying to comfort him, and then it cuts
he's just
to him
bawling,
bawling because his daughter's getting older and she's gonna move out of the house soon. And he's but there's a picture of her as a little kid on his shoulders. And then at the end of the movie, when they're making the pyramid to do the crane, she's holding the camera like on his shoulders.
Oh, I didn't catch that. That is beautiful.
Yeah, really sweet little moment.
I loved that his wife cracked the door open and was like, what was she? She was like, are you done? Or she was like, is it really that sad?
Yeah. He's like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it was gold. Well, dude, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for another wonderful One Guy's Seen It.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm trying to throw you some change-ups here. You never know what's coming next.
Yeah, well, and next week I'm gonna be the one guy who's seen it.
I'm excited.
Just to flip your lid.
All right.
So
what do you got planned?
I can't tell you. That negates the entire point of the podcast. Well, thank you to all of our legions of listeners, and by that we mean Sumner and me and Andy and probably my mom. And follow us on all the social medias that still don't exist. And we'll be back next week with another episode of One Guy's Seen It. And remember, Sumner, what's our catchphrase?
All movies are better with at least one beer.
All movies are better with at least one beer.
One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.